Check, check, check. Check, check, 1, 2. Talk about the kitchen sink. That was all, I remember this. There's a lot of knives being scraped. I was using a lot of different instruments from the kitchen actually in this one. About 14 years old. Oh, let's transfer it again. And notice that every time I play this, it's going to sound different. The tape slowly deteriorates every time. This is actually earlier, this is probably 87. So I'll do one more transfer of this. And we'll move on to something more contemporary.
Some of those heavy drones that come in afterwards are actually just an excess of tape noise. But I tell you, some of that stuff is like gold. I mean, these days, people just can't attain that sort of sound that they're always looking for. Not sure why there's so many versions of this particular piece on this one. There's also what's surprising is how long it lasted on these cassettes. I mean, you can hear the deterioration, but I remember how it sounded 20 years ago, and it still had the same deterioration. I don't think I played this tape in at least 20 years, if not more. Knives again. That ching 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 ching. Those are some knives. Again, this particular track, I remember this real well, was a practice in nonviolence. I was really struggling, trying to hone my emotions into a musical form, and so I think the knives appear for that reason. I carried so many knives back then. Second pass, I guess. Sounds faster, that means I had bounced it off of this other deck I had with the pitch in. So each of these takes are actually overdub takes. Each one has one more overdub than the last one. New York City ritual shit right here. No, I hadn't heard of African Head Charge when I made this. But you know, Adrian wasn't the only motherfucker putting some echo over a fucking percussion. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people doing that. Right, yeah. And also, I'm the percussionist here. I'm applying the percussion, and I'm applying the echo, and I'm applying the service of recording it, and I'm applying the service of mixing it, and I'm applying the service of mastering it. I just try my best to avoid getting all mixed up with other people's work and other people's scenes, really, or even genres. So it's that's been probably the most the hardest thing for me to pull through my career in the music industry, is avoiding that kind of shit, becoming a producer of this, a hip-hop producer, this producer, that producer. Not interested. That's not what I'm about. I produce. But thank you. Yeah, no, it's a good reference for sure. Love African Head Charge, no doubt. But all I'm saying is that the reference of African Head Charge has no significance to my work until after, I would say, 94 or so. Then yeah, or 93. Then yes, for sure. But back here, this is all me hanging out with Juma Sultan studying percussion as a teenager, and that's all this is. I'm just rehearsing, really, and overdubbing with myself so that I can get better at playing percussion. That was my goal. I wasn't trying to make so-called music, or record for that matter. None of this came out ever. More knives. It's pretty hilarious. That's it. Let's check the flip side.
top again. Okay, rolling. Quite interesting intro came up. Considered a lot of this as like dueling, essentially fighting with myself. So it was like a duel. And I think later on, as I got better at percussion, I started to do these more improvisational switches between two different percussion instruments. But the idea of this was really anti-social drum circle because it's all me. I hear a recording from the train station. That's what I'm hearing in the background. Because I used to carry around this little pocket tape recorder. Yep, more knives. I really put those knives to good use, I would say. This was a practice. This is a practice exercise for percussion. So that was what I was following. scraping away on that knife there. Yeah, this is before I was producing under the name Psycho. It's funny because I should have sampled some of these knives for that project. That's for damn sure. And I didn't get a sampler until I started Psycho, which was in 1989 and 88. I started that, but I didn't show anyone or dare play it for anybody until 89. Gosh, so much noise in that, but it's almost like that noise is gold because it's so rare. Rare noise, exactly. I remember this one too. This is using a tape loop. I made a tape loop with one drum pattern, like a set. Everything else played over it. So it would be about 4 passes, jumping between boomboxes. So I'm playing, recording into one, and then passing that through the speakers into the other one. Yeah, it's an interesting way of doing things, obviously. Not ideal. But you do with what you can. I mean, I guess that's why these days I'm pretty comfortable, really. You know, I mean, if a system crashes, I got another one up my sleeve, that's all. I can't deal with systems crashing and no music, no creativity happening. That's some soundboy shit that I'm never gonna fucking do ever again. The last time that happened to me was at a school, you know, and the way that shit was set up. And then you're stuck, but, you know, have backup computers, backup systems. Don't just learn Ableton, learn every fucking program you can fucking get your hands on. You know, just knowing one is not enough, honestly, to do what I'm doing. Not even close. If you want to do what I'm doing, meaning changing vastly different projects, you know, you do want to get your hands on other equipment. Music like this was a lot easier to do than the electronic stuff that came afterwards, because I wasn't hindered by things like step sequencers and Synthi code, which was a high-pitched sine wave that was on the last track of your multi-tracks. If you had 8 tracks, you would have 1 track of Synthi. That locked 2 decks as well as many other MIDI instruments. They were reading off of Synthi code. Yo, shout out to anybody who remembers Synthi. After all this, after we get all these passed through, then we're going to move forwards with doing all the mastering processes. Currently it is being mastered, hypothetically. What's that? Well, that is just tape saturation. So what you're hearing there, there's no effects on the drum except for I can tell that some of the drums are running. I'm playing percussion through my reverb input on the Multivox echo chamber with the echo off. So I can hear that spring reverb in there. Actually played. And the pattern that I started with was a lesson. Do da da do da 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 that. And I was practicing that among other structures, developing from there. I was a mean percussionist back then. I stopped playing altogether after 9/11. It was I just started getting a lot of neurological issues, so I had to stop. I might come back to it, but to be honest, it's perfectly fine. I got what I needed from percussion, and I take it with me. And just because I'm not performing like that as a session musician anymore, I'm actually happy about that. I'd be pretty fucked right now if I just put all of my eggs in that basket of being a studio musician. You know, I'd be pretty broke right now. Or at least that's how I thought about it. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. Glenn Velez did real good. Ciro Batista. Other percussionists, but and you know, with Juma, he doesn't just play percussion, he also plays double bass, etc., etc. So I had to move on from percussion at some point anyway. But yeah, it was a neurological issue, and I got some explanations, but for the most part, I think it was just time to stop doing this thing and take it into the studio and really perfect my skills on that rather than. But I do think my health would improve if I got back into it. There's no doubt about that. Just for my own well-being, not for listening pleasure of my audience, but actually for me as a health regimen. I should probably keep that up, especially now. Percussion is drumming is something really from the roots of every human being, and so that's the reason why you know, if you're a percussionist, you're pretty used to everyone coming up to you, grabbing your drum and start playing it. But if you're a violinist, you know, people just don't do that. They look at a violin, it looks like something that you got to go to school to learn, and so, you know, generally people don't touch it. Like it's as if it's a you know, some high-tech piece of equipment. But percussion, a drum, everyone will grab one and just start slamming it. And that says a lot. You know, that says a lot about the history of percussion, the roots. It's just ingrained in everyone. For sure, some styles are very specific to a, you know, geographically. And I studied various patterns, but eventually, you know, various rhythms for different cultures, studying all that stuff, for the most part, until eventually I got more interested in these patterns, how they connected all these different cultures rather than a particular culture. And so when I did the Badawi albums, that was my main thing to do. It was never to create fucking world music, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe it was, but not that kind, you know. we're not necessarily like saying something is world music. I'd be much more interested in creating a music that that doesn't relate to everyone. In fact, it doesn't relate to anyone. If I ever make something that doesn't relate to anyone, I always thought about that would be the ultimate success, because everyone has some connection to certain things, and just doing it just to do it. But in this case, I'm not pursuing. I'm not trying to occupy other people's ethnicities here. It's just I'm studying with a master percussionist right now in these recordings in 1987 and 88, and trying to as well become a master. And this was a health regimen for me. The drumming came in to straighten my ass out. That's it. And the only reason I'm good at it is because I really, really needed to do it. And that's why. There is no... I picked that up and I said, okay, I better do this, because the other option when I was 14 was not good. It was not going to go well. Word. Exercising demons, it's to me these recordings are me exercising my own demons. Totally spot on, exactly what I was going for. Absolutely no idea I would ever make a record. That didn't even cross my mind with this stuff. It was my other stuff I was doing back then that I was gearing that towards. So I'm not sure if I would release this. I don't know. You guys tell me. I like that ringing. Right there. Just a nice overtone. Let's keep an eye on the scope here, because some of this stuff goes radically from one side to the next. No, we're okay. Okay, I know it. This is an exercise I would do where I would improvise, so not really trying to make a beat or to lock to, but a completely open improvisation, and then drumming to that improvisation. And through this, I discovered that I had an internal clock, and then from there, that helped me a lot. So this was a good way for me to learn about my own internal clock, and I talk about this with students. Everyone has their own internal clock, and some people talk about frequencies, right? So that everyone has their own frequency. Well, everyone has a lot of frequencies, actually, but there is an internal clock that is,
really in a particular zone that each individual has, and I try to find my own rhythm here.
Good samples in there. I kind of want to send this to my homie H Prism. See how he cuts this shit up. 'Cause he'll take this shit to a whole other fucking dimension. That was that's the glue. That right there. We'll get into some more contemporary stuff soon. Hear that sound? That means the tape's coming down. Nice UX Pro 60s, and I was getting these at Sterling Sound when they were in Midtown. 99, early 90s. I was getting these tapes, and that was a dope hookup. And I'd spray paint them, and yeah, they sound solid, man. They last forever. As far as I mean, if forever is 30 years, then here we are. Actually, these are the UX Pro 60s came later. So right now I'm going to just keep digitizing all of this, and then these will eventually be cut down into sample loops. And then all the students are going to be using some of these as well as creating their own. Anyone listening in who's not a part of the course, you're probably hearing me talking to someone, but it's not you. Anyway, that's because in the middle of that. So please get in touch. Check out the website, www.upa.nyc. The Underground Producers Alliance. I, myself, Scotty Hard, Val Gianti, Honeychild Coleman, H. Prism, Todd Krupa, Randall Dunn, all kinds of folks, Prince Paul, we all linked together, and we got this thing called the Underground Producers Alliance. You're gonna go to school for music production? Yeah, you better hit us up first. Trust me on this one. Trust me. You want to hit us up first. Okay? Before you go to grad school for music, you want to check us out. Period. And if your professors don't tell you so, then they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Sorry. I know I gotta chill out, but this is just getting unusually odd sometimes. Section there. There's always these little areas in here where there's something coherent. Whoa! What the hell was that? That sounds like the tape shifted. That must have been the one that was playing back into tape machine B. In other words, the recording destination. Let's try this UX Pro 60, see what's on it. I don't really know because this one's not labeled, so I'm curious. In a few days we'll have to get another one of my decks fixed because they drop sometimes. It's good to have a spare one. Oh, I went over this yesterday, right? Okay. Yeah, this was never released. It was just kind of like just something John and I were working on. It's a sub-dub track. It's probably 93, 92. It's just we made a bunch of stuff like this, but we never released it. Just didn't go. You know, the song itself doesn't really. It's a big difference though from that percussion stuff. This is me with a sequencer, you know, so it's like once you get locked into that sequence, you just end up becoming a slave to it in a lot of ways. But you join the workers, you know. The workers are all working within that system. Suddenly you're talking about harmonies, you're talking about notes, you're talking about major chords and minor chords, and you're talking about time signatures, and you're talking about all of that stuff. But as you continue in it, you realize, you know, once you get into the sync game, you get locked into it, it syncs you, you know, it really does. It's crazy. So after a while I drew back from that as well. I got into it, you know, here in 93. It's new to me. In 93 I was like, holy shit, I can lock my instruments together. This is crazy. I could lock two decks together. Amazing. But at the same time, I could have just pressed play it on those two decks and it would have been fine. Just like how from the percussion example I just played earlier. That percussion example proves it, because I'm playing to an internal clock that I possess myself, that I have to find. I have to look for it, right? And so if you don't do the work in finding your own internal clock, you're just going to end up making lots and lots and lots of copies of other people's music. Because you're studying another person's internal clock. It's good to study, but why bother doing it unless it's yours? Okay? I mean, it's just because, you have to divide it what it is that you want from what you're doing. Do you want some sort of, do you want more financial gain from music, or do you want, are you doing it for really in order to find your own space? And so for me, it was both of those things. And so I had to study the clock of all of this stuff. And that's what I call it, studying the clock. But not, knowing how it works, knowing the behavior of it, knowing the schematics of it, and then backing off from it, holding it over, putting it aside as just a part of your vocabulary that you're going to pull out. And if you do film scores or things like that, as I had to do, you then are able to pull out these vibes, because you have to, in a lot of ways, in those cases, pretend that you are someone else. And it's why a lot of film composers, I have a lot of respect for all film composers, but I don't envy them, because something about doing that a lot, you lose yourself, really, unless you really can hold firm to that sound. Everyone is, gelling with it. I think Philip Glass got a good, he found a nice niche. It's almost like a heist, he like robbed the bank with his concept, and that concept works for film without, some of his scores have maybe not worked, but that's more of a fault of the director than anything else. So, okay, that's enough of that. Let's see what's on the other side. It sounds interesting, and much older than the previous side. So this might be a deck. This might be a tape that I was just trying to put together a compilation. I mean, it dawned on me only like around 91 or 92 that I had to make compilations. In other words, of various artists. Even though I was the artist, I would put out these cassettes of so-called various artists, and they were all different names from different places. And it's pretty funny that I did that, honestly, when I think about it, because I didn't really tell people that it was me. So so I was basically creating these mixed tapes of all these producers that no one had heard of, with all kinds of wild, fantastical names, which now today I have seen artists with those names, but they didn't exist back then, I can assure you. And when I did those so-called compilations, they were really intended to sell practice stuff, like just try to kind of put forth different ideas. But those tapes didn't do as well as obviously the dance music stuff that I was doing. So, but it was happening. So in my case, I felt like if it's happening, if you're able to do it and you're doing something, it doesn't necessarily should be doing it all the time, but it's definitely means it's going to be a part of your arsenal. And it's a lot like studying martial arts, because as I did as well, it's very similar, and basically you have to collect slowly as you get better, and as you practice those katas, those initial formations, which are those sequences, those are clocks I'm talking about. And when you practice those in martial arts, you can then start bringing in all the other martial art practices of other cultures. But what's the point of it? It's just it's not for any kind of reason, to create some sort of unity between them. All right, let's bounce this one off. We're gonna restart. However, I'm learning not to restart the stream, because that's a disaster. So I'm going to try to remain on for as long as possible, see how this goes. This is really just a test. But soon we will be doing classes all entirely this way, as we have been doing. But I'm going to open this up to a larger audience. And, we don't really have much of a following, but that's perfectly okay. We're going to do it anyway. At this point, I realize anything I do, I shouldn't expect it to be popular. At least not yet. Here we go. Market. So important to market on these things, because sometimes you have a tape with so many different recordings on it. Okay, so that's a dub record. Let's let it ride and see what the hell this is. Yeah, I recognize this is a record. Yeah, you hear that. Go, 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 go. That's famous. That's obviously a sample. Scientist, possible. Yeah, it sounds like a multi-track that I did, produced from samples I grabbed from records I had, various dub albums. All right, let's see what comes up next. That was quite nice, actually. I'll return to that. We can go back and master it again. Looks like another mix. I don't know. I have no idea. It's either me producing it from various records, but I'd have to find the original reel. But I wouldn't put this out. Too many samples. a licensing nightmare. So that has to be around 92 because I was doing those practice dubs. I didn't really get into dub until the 90s anyway. I knew about it, but it didn't really register. Because in the 80s, I was trying to I was strictly obsessed actually with making beats for breakdancers. But when I went to the record store, I finally bought every break beat I could possibly, meaning like classic breakdance stuff, at the record store in New York City. And the guy said to me, he said, "Hey, why don't you check out instrumental reggae?" And I was like, "What?" It just didn't sound like what I was looking for. But he played me Burning Spear, Garvey's Ghost, the dub album, which is still probably one of my all-time favorite dub albums. It's completely dry, no echo, no reverb. It's a pure instrumental record and a really pure dub record. But the thing about this stuff is that it's all constructed with samples of reggae, and then at the end of the day, I do not want to make reggae because I'm not fucking Jamaican, you know what I'm saying? So I never really crossed my mind to do that. The only time, though, is a bunch of dancehall instrumentals that I made, and I actually unearthed those and sent one to Max Glazer, and he's liking it, so... some of those are, it happens. But obviously some of my dancehall rhythms have, argue with that, argument that I just made, that statement I just made. Oh, I guess one more. Let's see how different it is. There's definitely, if it keeps repeating like this has to be a mix session. But I wonder why we're doing it. I have to use my ability to memorize every ride I'm hearing, but how is this different than the last? That's what I'm trying to figure out. We'll check the waveforms later. Okay, that ride I just did, that's new, so that is different than the last one. Because for me, the music is in the rides I'm doing also with the faders. You're using essentially the mixer as an instrument. Taking things in and out, constructing the song. You redo the song. You can end it anytime you want because you're using the faders. Once you get a handle of that and you're using them almost like a conductor, you can construct the song in just endless amounts of ways. It's just a matter of subtracting. It's not a matter of adding per se. It's a matter of subtracting. I kind of like how it records, repeats because it's so short. The composition that, yeah. I think I should send this one to my bro Max. I wonder if this is tape loops. It's starting to. It's too tight though. Those rods are different. Hopefully there's not yet another version, but there might be. I wanted to get it right. Although I remember scientists said to me, "You can't. There's no such thing as a perfect mix." This one's nice. There's a lower frequency in there. It's pretty cool. See, to me, this one sounds better than the last several, so it's also a matter of level, how loud I was going to tape. Yeah, it just seems that this is probably a bounce mixed down from really old 4-track stuff. There's definitely not on quarter-inch tape. This has to be on cassette originally, as well as the mix. Because these are just stereo mixes to tape. That's a scientist record. And that's the other cool thing about doing dub, is that you have to, in a lot of ways, memorize all the tracks isolated separately before you do the dub mix. So you know, like, a vocal's saying one thing a minute and a half in, and you just know the composition. Then you can start fresh, the faders down, and build up a mix, a new mix, a total different interpretation of that original song. Okay, so now this is older. This is kind of interesting. You hear that melody in there? Right there.
interesting. Let's see if there's other mixes of it. Yep. So this, you can already hear the noise. That means this is the second pass. That noise is what's feeding into the microphone. So I always know that this is 80s because of that. And also the percussion. These are, I remember these drums too. They're similar to timbales. I found them in the street. Can you believe that? They're pearl. They're like pearl, I think. And they were timbales. I just walking down the street in Manhattan, and there they were. And at that time, I was just getting settled back into New York. Yeah, that's definitely those timbales. Oh, I love those. I had 3 of them. But I played them with my hands, not with sticks. That whoa, that's that resonance. You know, you gotta have just at least one thing in there. Sometimes it's just resonating. Then you get all these, these other kind of, I call them ghost harmonies that happen. Different people receive them in different ways, and they imagine them in different ways. It's not like autoacoustics with Marian Amache. And it's not psychoacoustic either. You know. There's another mix. And every time I did a pass back to tape, it has another layer of noise, so it's kind of wild.